Welcome to Consider This with Big Joe Clark. Joe is a certified financial planner with more than 28 years of experience in the financial services industry. He serves as the managing partner of the Financial Enhancement Group, LLC, and also taught financial planning at Purdue University for 7 years. The Financial Enhancement Group is an SEC-registered investment advisory firm based in Indiana with more than $200 million in assets, serving clients in more than 20 states. Indiana offices are located in Anderson, Fishers, Lafayette, and Rensselaer, as well as Sonoma County, California. This show is for educational purposes, and you're strongly encouraged to consult your advisor regarding your individual issues and opportunities. Joe can be reached at 800-928-4001. You can find more information about Joe and the Financial Enhancement Group at yourlifeafterwork.com. Enjoy the show, and remember to consider this.
Good morning and welcome to Consider This. I'm Joe Clark.
I'm Sherry Contos.
Nothing like starting the show with a chuckle there, Sherry dear.
And we can't even talk about why we're laughing.
Well, it's the political world that we live in, that things that are going on, the conventions are done, just looking at the fallout and the things that are happening. One of the questions I get asked a lot is what will happen to the economy based on who gets elected.
Yeah.
If I could tell you who would get elected, I would have a better ability at doing that. The only thing that we can cover and will cover are some of the things that have to occur under the next presidential watch.
Yeah.
And so we'll get into that in today's show because they do affect your retirement. One of the biggest, obviously, is Social Security.
Yeah.
Watched another life insurance fiasco occur this last week. Life insurance is one of those things that nobody wants to talk about. Policies are almost always sold, rarely bought. Rarely does somebody wake up and say, I need insurance and try to figure out where to get it.
Right.
So there's just the uncomfortable, the 10,000 pound moose in the table. I think Tobias called it when about a boardroom when you don't want to talk about it. But they're out there and people need to understand how they work, I think, a little bit better than what's going on. We're also going to talk about some of the lawsuits. I got a few questions going, okay, Joe, you've proven your point. The 401k companies are being sued by their own employees because their 401k fees and expenses are too high. How is this happening? What does it mean? And it's stuff that we've talked about on the show for many, many years.
Yep.
But we'll get into it again in depth. Just try to remind you what's going on and things that you need to be paying attention to, especially as you retire. When I find people that are 65 or 70 or even 75 that have been retired for 10 or 15 years and still have money in a 401k plan or at Fidelity, I scratch my head and I ask why. I mean, what are we not properly communicating so that you can understand the better benefit you have being inside of an IRA when you're dealing with a registered investment advisor, a fiduciary. And I'm not talking about somebody who buys and sells annuities, or brokers or any of that other stuff. But when you're with a professional money manager who does this, your options inside of an IRA just seem to make more sense to me. But we'll cover that again on the show as well. If you got a question or comment, something that you want to hear discussed, feel free to email me, consider this at yourlifeafterwork.com. Look forward to your questions and your comments. With that, Sherry and I will take a break. We'll be right back.
Welcome to Consider This with Big Joe Clark. Joe is a certified financial planner with more than 28 years of experience in the financial services industry. He serves as the managing partner of the Financial Enhancement Group, LLC, and also taught financial planning at Purdue University for 7 years. The Financial Enhancement Group is an SEC-registered investment advisory firm based in Indiana with more than $200 million in assets, serving clients in more than 20 states. Indiana offices are located in Anderson, Fishers, Lafayette, and Rensselaer, as well as Sonoma County, California. This show is for educational purposes, and you're strongly encouraged to consult your advisor regarding your individual issues and opportunities. Joe can be reached at 800-928-4001. You can find more information about Joe and the Financial Enhancement Group at yourlifeafterwork.com. Enjoy the show, and remember to consider this.
Good morning and welcome back to Consider This. I'm Joe Clark.
I'm Sherry Contos.
And now we're going to embark on that interesting conversation
About Politics?
No, life insurance.
Life insurance. Oh, shoot.
One is more certain than the other.
Okay.
That would be the life insurance side. But no, life insurance is one of those things that comes up in conversations that nobody really wants to have. And people many times forget that they have them or how they work.
They set them up and forget.
And so I will share with you the world's greatest fiasco that I saw.
Okay.
And then let you understand how one just happened last week to a much smaller scale.
Okay.
Right? So in 1980, interest rates were very, very high. And that means the interest that you paid if you borrowed money was high. And it means the interest that you were credited, that you received if you had an interest-bearing CD or an insurance account, were also very high. And so a little lady in Tennessee decides to deposit $100,000 into an insurance product that had a guarantee on it of 8%. Now, 8% is not a bad deal.
Okay.
In 1980, she actually got more than the 8%. The 8% was the minimum guarantee.
Okay.
Right? It'd be wonderful if the contract was even still around.
Sure.
Right. Along the early mid 90s, apparently something happened in her family. And she had to come up with a $300,000 or $400,000, and so she went to the insurance agent. I'm make believe now. I don't know what happened, but I presume that she went to the insurance agent and said, "I need my money out." And the agent probably told her if she surrendered the policy that it would be all taxable, which he would have anything above the $100,000, which is what we call cost basis, would be fully taxable. And I am sure he said you could take out a loan, which would be tax free, which was an accurate statement. And so she withdrew $300,000 from the contract as a loan, right? And did what she had to do with it, which was take care of some family business. Mm-hmm. Now, the loan also, even though the money that she has is crediting interest,
the loan is off of the policy.
The loan was off the policy. So
okay.
when people say they borrowed money from themselves out of an insurance policy, that's not what really happens.
Okay.
The life insurance company keeps your policy as collateral.
Okay.
And then loans you money out of the general fund.
So what happens if you die?
Well, that's an interesting thing, but let's not go there yet.
Okay. All right.
All right. So she borrowed the $300,000 from the insurance company.
Okay.
They used her policy as collateral.
Sure.
And they charged her interest on the loan.
On the $300,000.
On the $300,000 loan.
Okay.
Again, at a relatively high interest rate period of time. Her contract, I believe, was like 6% that she had to pay.
But she's still earning 8% on the insurance.
In theory, but in the way that contract works, she actually paid more than she was credited. So that. But
isn't she? Well, go ahead.
No, I mean the bottom line is she was losing a net about 2% a year.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
In the deal. So the years go by, 1990s go by, and we get to 2006, maybe 7, and the son-in-law, I should say, is trying to take over the family finances and finds this insurance policy that has a cash value today of about $110,000. And he is livid. He is madder than all get out that his mother-in-law was steered into this insurance product in 1980 for $100,000. And here we are almost 30 years later, and it's only got $110,000 in it.
So she borrowed $300,000 against a policy that was only $110,000?
Yep.
Okay.
Think about the high interest rates that came through the 80s and the accumulation and the growth on the money. It was a beautiful thing.
Okay.
And so you're talking in like 1996, and she had 8 years where she'd earned 12 or 13% on the guaranteed side. I mean, it was kind of a crazy thing. Sure. But the son-in-law decides that he goes to a bank and talks to a bank representative at J.P. Morgan. Sells insurance products, annuities, and tells the son-in-law, yes, you're right, this was a bad idea. Right? So the two of them decide that they're going to surrender the policy so that he can invest the $110,000 in mutual funds. Well, fortunately, the daughter of the mother calls me and says, hey, Mr. Clark.
What do you think about that?
And I said, before you ever surrender any insurance policy, here is my checklist. And the checklist says make sure you know who the owner is, who the annuitant is, who the beneficiary is, what is the cost basis, which can only be determined by the insurance company itself, and are there any loans that are outstanding on the policy. So the daughter did this. Well, turns out you're now at about a $500,000 loan, the amount of money she borrowed plus the interest that accrued on it.
Because she didn't pay any of it back.
She didn't pay any of it back. It didn't make any of the payments.
Wow.
And so I told her, I said, this is what happens if you surrender the policy. You ask what happens to a loan if you die.
Right.
Right. And the answer is it disappears on a life insurance policy. It disappears. So if the lady would have died at 90 some years old, if she would have died, the beneficiary would have received a check for about the $110,000, $120,000.
And the loan goes away.
The loan disappears. The interest is never taxed. It's all gone.
Why would they ever loan money under those bases?
Why wouldn't they loan it? That's how the insurance industry makes a fortune. It's why insurance products have a great tax code.
But what I'm saying is she's not paying on the loan.
They had the collateral. Who cares?
But
they were charging her more money. It's not that the insurance company doesn't get its money. You said, how's it taxed? There's a huge difference in that question. The insurance in her policy, Sherry, it looked like she had $600,000 or $700,000. All that was left after the loan was paid was $110,000 or $120,000.
Okay. I get it now.
Don't confuse the insurance company. They don't forget the loan.
I know.
Right?
No. I get it now.
They get their money, so of course they're going to loan it. It's beautiful, beautiful tax code policy for the insurance industry. The problem is the son-in-law didn't listen, and he and the broker surrendered the policy. And the lady got a 1099 for the value of what was anything above her basis.
I see
Whether
now.
she had borrowed it out in the 90s didn't matter or not.
It's
plus all of
showing
the
up.
interest. It is all taxable. And ended up having to declare bankruptcy at 90 plus years old because she didn't have the ability to pay a couple $100,000 in taxes on $110,000 that she got out of a policy. So rule number one, if you're going to do any of this stuff, you do it with a checklist.
Yeah.
Right. You always have a check. There are pertinent questions that you have to ask. Most life insurance policies do not have gains in them. Right. It's just the way it is. Most of them. That doesn't mean all of them, but most of them don't have a taxable gain. So you always want to pay attention to the basis. And this is one of the things that I taught my students at Purdue. There's a cute little code in the Internal Revenue Service. It's called a 1035 exchange. And a 1035 exchange lets me switch life insurance policies for a life insurance policy, tax-free. And you take your basis with you. It lets me switch an annuity for an annuity, tax-free. And it also lets me switch a life insurance policy to buy an annuity, tax-free. So let's say that you've been putting money into a life insurance policy for 20 years, right? You needed the death benefit back then.
Sure, right.
Now, today I would tell you, you only get life insurance for two reasons, either liquidity or the replacement of income, right? Those are the really only two reasons that are needed for the average American family that's out there. But you're going along the way, and you've put money into this life insurance policy 20 years later. You call and you use my checklist. You get the basis, and the insurance company says your basis is $20,000 or $50,000 because that's what you've paid over the 20 years, but your cash value is $20,000. Right?
Okay.
So the common response on the other end of the phone is there's no taxable gain for you to surrender the policy, right? Your basis is $50,000 and you've got $20,000 in it. And that's true. You could surrender it and not pay a dime of tax. Of course, at that point in time, I would tell you you need to fire your financial planner, including yourself if you're the one that made that decision. Because the correct decision is to use a 1035 exchange where you 1035 that life insurance policy into a no-load fee-based variable annuity. We use them all the time. The contract fee is $35 a year. Right? We manage the money inside of it, but because it stays in an insurance product, in an annuity, it's a tax-free transfer. Now, Sherry, now what you have is $20,000 in a variable annuity, but your basis is what?
50.
Your basis is 50 because that's what you'd paid into the life insurance policy.
So those annuities can increase in value.
That means that first $30,000 worth of growth in that contract is tax-free money.
Wow.
It's like a super Roth. It's got a cap on it, but people waste money all the time. They get mad at their insurance agent. They get mad at the life insurance. I'll have people call the show and say, Joe, based on what you told me, I think I need to surrender the policy. I always say, bring the policy in. You'd be amazed the number of times I find policies with guarantee incomes, and I don't mean living benefit riders on these variable annuity things. I mean guaranteed we're crediting your account 5% or 6%. Why would you keep money in a CD at 1 if I could put it in an insurance company and get 5 or 6, with reasonable insured protection on the money? So. Yeah. You got to pay attention to these things. The one that we just had happen a few weeks ago, guy had borrowed money, did not follow the checklist, brought in the check, right? They just brought in the check and
they'd already cut it.
And already cut, policy's already surrendered.
Wow.
So I asked the questions, what was your basis to show them what they could have done? And that's when I found out there was a $20,000 loan on the policy that they had used to put a kid through college. And, so they saw that they had less money in it than what they'd paid. They'd forgotten about the loan and the interest. And so now they're going to get a tax bill. And it's not going to be enough to put them into bankruptcy. It was just an ineffective use of capital. And again, that's the mantra of the show is I want to teach you the best ways that I can for you to use your money to make the best decision. You're going to wind up, folks, with bumps in the road. You're going to wind up with things that are not perfect the way that you want them. There are going to be surprises, some good and some not so good, right? The key thing here is to have a playbook that says this is how you're going to deal with it. And when we do our family updates, there's a reason for this. We run through those 5 critical elements of financial lives, your life after work. So are you on track for retirement? Are you saving the right amount of money? Are you ready for your retirement practice year, which we love to help people do? Are you, how's that stuff going if you're already retired? How is cash flow? Everybody getting along, doing everything you want to do, et cetera. Number 2 is the tax plan. What can we do this year during the calendar year so that your CPA can tell a better story next April when it's time to tell the tax man what happened? Let's make sure the tax plan for our charitable gifting, our itemized deductions, maybe stacking, the things that we can do are in good order. Are we maximizing our bracket? Meaning that we're getting money out of IRAs and putting them into Roths, when it makes sense to do. Number 3 is the investment playbook. I love to talk about the market and the economy and what's going on. And if you want to hear more of that on a regular basis, just go to the website, sign up for my Market Carver. It comes out every week, every Thursday you get it. It'll tell you what we think is the most important stuff going on in the market right now. The 4th thing then is life happens. It's the good and bad and ugly of life. You're probably only going to have to put a parent in a facility one time in your life. I've had to do it a lot. Right, you're only going to have to pay for college education probably once or twice. We've had to do it a lot. Right, it's the good, the bad, and ugly. How do you help somebody buy a house? Do you help them buy a house? How do you make a gift to help them buy a house? Those kind of things. And then last but not least is that legacy plan. And if we don't make sure that the trust and the will emulate what it is that you want to have happen in your life, if they're not congruent all the way through, then we've got missing parts. And what I've found is there are people who may understand 1 or 2 of those 5 things.
Sure.
Without understanding the one that you don't understand can kill you just as easy as the other ones can help you. This is a matter of putting a plan in place so that we stay on the same page, we know where it is we're going, and we give ourselves the best opportunity to succeed. Hey, you're listening to Consider This. I'm Joe Clark along with Sherry Contos. Got to take a break. We'll be right back.
Welcome to Consider This with Big Joe Clark. Joe is a certified financial planner with more than 28 years of experience in the financial services industry. He serves as the managing partner of the Financial Enhancement Group, LLC, and also taught financial planning at Purdue University for 7 years. The Financial Enhancement Group is an SEC-registered investment advisory firm based in Indiana with more than $200 million in assets, serving clients in more than 20 states. Indiana offices are located in Anderson, Fishers, Lafayette, and Rensselaer, as well as Sonoma County, California. This show is for educational purposes, and you're strongly encouraged to consult your advisor regarding your individual issues and opportunities. Joe can be reached at 800-928-4001. You can find more information about Joe and the Financial Enhancement Group at yourlifeafterwork.com. Enjoy the show, and remember to consider this.
Good morning and welcome back to Consider This. I'm Joe Clark.
I'm Sherry Contos.
Happy to have you along. Sherry, you have any idea what a REIT is?
REIT.
REIT.
Retirement.
So you're getting better at guessing.
No, it has to do with, doesn't it have to do with, I want to say real estate.
Real estate.
Okay.
Real estate equity investment trust.
All right. Got it.
Instead of buying a property, you have bought a conglomerate of properties.
Okay. So I got it. Yep.
You can buy individual REITs in various places. You can also buy an exchange traded fund. IYR is one of them. That is a basket of a bunch of different REITs.
So you're buying a share of a conglomerate of real estate entities.
Yes, absolutely. If you buy a REIT like IYR, the Exchange Traded Fund, you bought a bunch of different REITs. Some of them may do storage facilities. Some of them may do nursing homes. Some of them may do.
I see. So you can choose, though.
You can get into the individual ones, and everybody wants to own real estate, right?
Yes.
Real estate has done very, very well this year. It's a hot topic in the REIT space. Year-to-date performance is better than the S&P 500. When you look at the S&P 500, REITs are part of the financial services sector until just now. And what's happened is the Standard & Poor's S&P 500 index, if you will, is now going to be broken into another subsector, with that sector being REITs themselves. It's taken on its own place.
Okay.
So REITs are good. So when I say publicly traded, Sherry, what does that mean to you?
It means I can buy a share.
Why can you buy a share?
Because they have financed it in such a way that I can be an owner.
You can be an owner.
It's not like family owned. It's not. It's open.
It's not private. It'd be the key word.
It's not private.
There you go.
Not private. Yeah.
So last week we once a year we try to do something for the grandkids and the grandparents, and we had grandparents camp at Victory Field with the Indianapolis Indians.
Fun.
And so Angie and I, she's my events coordinator. We had about 30 people down, and you got to watch a ball game. But more importantly than that, we sit down with the kids and helped them come up with a business. And then they had to go to their grandparents to try to get cash.
Oh,
right,
my
to
gosh.
get the funding.
Oh, how fun.
So we took a company public, and they had to figure out whether they wanted to issue bonds, meaning that they wanted to pay back coupon payments and debt, or whether they wanted to have to give up some of their ownership, depending on the ideas and selling equity.
They needed money.
And so we took them through that, had a great time. Little surprised, the Indians had their financial day 2 days after that, where they invited a bunch of people and used the Bell Players. That I'm not telling you that they took our idea, but it was rather coincidental.
So did you do this at the facility?
We rented a suite, and
you did it up there.
Yeah, and we had a really we very much believe in this the family process of trying to do this.
No, it makes sense.
We'll talk about family bundling later, but my problem is this: I want people to understand how their money works, and I do not want them to get taken advantage of. I told my students at Purdue that it takes 4 things for somebody to become a new client in the financial services world. The first one is, do they like you and trust you? And because of Mr. Madoff and Mr. Shrinker and all of the other villains in the world, the other 3 no longer matter. We're trying to find somebody that we identify with, that we feel comfortable with. And you hope that because they go to your church, or because they're your best friend, or that they work at some big company, that they know what the heck that there is that they're doing. I wish it was that easy, my friends, but it's not. There are a lot of people that I like that just aren't really that competent. And it's, it is what it is. It's we live in a very, very complex world. Just to keep the record straight, the other 3, by the way, is: do you think we know what we're talking about? Do you understand our process? And do you need our process? Those are the 4 steps. Well, one of the things that exists when you go to work, and my kids at Purdue would get hired by insurance companies, or the Ed Jones office or something, and so you get this big name behind you, and then they're told to go sell these things, and one of these things are called non-traded REITs. And I just want you to understand a little bit about them. Fortunately, the gig's out. Non-traded.
Well, doesn't that mean they're not public?
It means it's not publicly traded, but it is publicly sold. So as your broker, I sit down with you and I would sell you one of these critters.
So like I can sell it to you, but you can't.
You have no ability to sell it back to anybody.
Oh.
Right. So
wow.
They're what we would call illiquid. Right.
Okay.
I guess verbiage that people use today is an alternative investment.
So the reason they would do that is because they have a monopoly.
They get paid a 7% commission.
Well, I know, but they
no. Let's just stop there. Don't do anything else. The reason they do it is the broker dealer who allows them to sell it is getting paid about 3%, and the broker who sells it's getting paid about 7%. So you get a 10% load in a product that has no ability to be able to function or to be able to work.
And that load is much higher than if you went through other means to publicly buy a REIT.
Yes, if you went to a publicly traded REIT,
right.
That number one, the publicly traded REIT's got more expenses in it than a stock or even a mutual fund for the most part. But it's liquid, meaning you can get your money out.
Okay, got it.
So we have a situation right now where, again, people who listen to me on the radio, some people think they have to cash everything out that they have to come here. That's not the case at all. We sit down with everybody's portfolios to figure out what makes sense for them, what doesn't. In an IRA, there's no taxes. So we will normally shift that in, and we have no cost at TD Ameritrade to make the switch. So normally we will shift it into stuff that we're able to watch all day long, that's part of our normal model of the 200 plus million that we take care of.
Sure.
In this case, they came in, and the 74-year-old gentleman had 2 non-traded REITs that were IRAs.
Okay.
Right. So understand, when you're over 70 and a half with an IRA, what do you have to do?
You got to take required minimum distributions.
Required minimum distribution. So the only IRA he had, one of the things about an IRA, which is different than a 401k or a 403b, is you can aggregate them. So if he had $10,000 in each of these 2 REITs, and another $20,000 in an IRA in a brokerage account, you could take the required minimum distribution for all 4 of them from one place. And he would be fine.
Right.
In this case, the broker was more greedy than that.
Really?
Yeah. The broker put him all of his IRA were in these 2 non-traded REITs.
So how do you even take the distribution if that's the case?
That's the whole point. You can't. The company has to the company issues shares.
Yeah. And you don't have the ability to sell them back.
Correct. But they're now transferred out of the IRA. So now you don't have the income, but you have a tax liability that you have to pay.
Right.
Because the IRS is still going to get their part of the required minimum distribution.
Well, how do you ever get your money out of?
Not until when in a non-traded REIT, every now and then when the properties are sold, they'll distribute revenue. And that's how people get their money back out. So they'll look at real estate as a safe bastion, an alternative quote investment to be able to use, and say, hey, we got a 7 or 8% dividend yield that's going on inside of here. And they'll get people to buy into it. The bottom line is, did you like and trust the guy? And the answer was yes. So, if it's somebody that's been around for a while, you assume that they know what they're doing. If it's a new kid, you use your nephew or your next door neighbor or your grandkid, you're assuming that they're not going to do something that would harm you. Here's the problem, guys, and it's why I strongly encourage people to deal with certified financial planners. Me being a certified financial planner does not make me a genius, and it does not make me a good guy. But it does make it so that I have been forced to prove that I understand this stuff. Right? If I look at you, Sherry, and I share with you an opinion or an idea that I know is incorrect, I believe, for the average American, that there's something that goes off in your belly, that lie indicator is going off. It goes, this guy's not, he's full of it. It's not true.
Yeah.
On the other hand, if I look at you with all of the confidence in the world, and I tell you that this is good for you, I don't think you have any protection if I don't know any better.
If you don't know any better.
If I don't know any better.
Well, you wouldn't have any protection under the a fiduciary law either, because if you don't...
No. Now you do have protection. And there's no...
If you don't know any better.
No fiduciary would be able to sell these things to anybody. Okay. Because the only way that I can be a fiduciary, remember the rule. I do. To be a fiduciary, I have to treat your money as if it were my money and we were in the same situation.
Yeah, but what if you didn't know any better?
That's the way that I have operated since the early 2000s. Since 2001, I think, is when we officially opened it under that side. And you're right. There's things that I may not know, right?
Right.
But the fiduciary standard at least makes me ask all of the questions.
All the questions, right? Yeah.
I'm telling. If somebody's dealing with you on your retirement accounts, your IRA or your 401k, and they're not asking to see your 1040, if they can't tell you everything about you off of that 1040, you were in the wrong place. Right? Because they don't understand how this works.
Yeah.
Our industry for years has said, consult your tax advisor. Nobody does it, right? But the bottom line is that part about being a CFP just means that there are less things that I could lie to you about accidentally. Right. I've got a broad range of education. The fiduciary rule that you talk about is going to make sure that I know everything about you that I can possibly need to know about you to help you make the same decision as if I were in your shoes, so to speak. And it's a touchy thing. The good news about these non-traded REITs is they're falling dramatically in terms of the amount of sales. They're off about 70%. A big part of it is companies getting ready for the Department of Labor rule. If you get audited and the SEC comes in and your brokers have been selling these things to people, as Ricky Ricardo would say, somebody got some splaining to do. This is not going to go well for people. And, you've got to be asking yourselves as employers, as employees, what are the things that I need to be thinking about to better take care of my money? And I will tell you the short abbreviated checklist is the fiduciary focus. These are the 4 areas that you always have to ask yourself about. Risk and volatility. Is it in the right? Is it in good order? Fees and expenses, and understand they're 2 different things. Taxes, but that's both today and tomorrow. And last but not least is real return. Am I getting something above 0 plus whatever the inflation rate is? And if you're not paying attention to all 4 of those, you have a chance for a weakness to be able to be lurking somewhere inside of your plan. We're going to come back. We're going to talk about some of the 401k plans, why they're getting sued right now. And when you think about the employees of a 401k provider and suing their company because of excessive fees and expenses, you probably don't want them having your plan either. Just saying. Just one of those things I want to point out.
Yeah.
Hey, you're listening to Consider This. I'm Joe Clark along with Sherry Contos. Got to take a break. We'll be right back.
Welcome to Consider This with Big Joe Clark. Joe is a certified financial planner with more than 28 years of experience in the financial services industry. He serves as the managing partner of the Financial Enhancement Group, LLC, and also taught financial planning at Purdue University for 7 years. The Financial Enhancement Group is an SEC-registered investment advisory firm based in Indiana with more than $200 million in assets, serving clients in more than 20 states. Indiana offices are located in Anderson, Fishers, Lafayette, and Rensselaer, as well as Sonoma County, California. This show is for educational purposes, and you're strongly encouraged to consult your advisor regarding your individual issues and opportunities. Joe can be reached at 800-928-4001. You can find more information about Joe and the Financial Enhancement Group at yourlifeafterwork.com. Enjoy the show, and remember to consider this.
Well, good morning and welcome back to Consider This. I'm Joe Clark.
I'm Sherry Contos.
Happy to have you guys along.
Yep.
Sherry, as they say, sometimes you just can't make this stuff up.
Yeah. I shudder to think what you're about to say.
It's all over. It's all over investment news and in other places that are out there. Hopefully, it's going to begin to hit mainline media so that people can understand the fiduciary rule and some of the things that we talk about. But here's the deal: at the Financial Enhancement Group, we have no proprietary products, meaning I don't have a mutual fund that I manage. I don't have
that you get a kickback from
products. Yes, that we get kickbacks from or anything else. We use exchange traded fund and individual equities. It's all held at TD Ameritrade, and they give us no money either. Right, so we contract with them to keep it as cheap as we possibly can. The 401k plan that we use does not use mutual funds. It uses exchange traded funds because they are more cost effective for my employees, not because they make me more money as the employer.
Right.
They are more cost effective for me as an employee and the rest of the people that are on our team. All right. So and we use the exchange traded funds just like we do inside of portfolios that we manage for people. Right, so when I sit down with one of the many companies that we have where we actually manage the 401k, my team goes in, implements the 401k, helps them design the plan document that they need to have, and sit down and provide group education for your employees and then one-on-one training for your employees to answer their questions. Because again, you can't make a correct 401k statement without having somebody's tax return. I can't tell you whether it should be a Roth or not a Roth or how much that matters to you without having it. So my guys go in, they'll sit down with you individually and they do the group education and then they'll do the individual education. It's the exact same 401k plan that I have that my money is in because I think it's the best that you can get, right?
Which is why you're in it.
So if I'm an agent of, let's say, New York Life,
okay,
and I have a 401k plan to sell that's New York Life mutual funds, right? It would only make sense that my 401k was also in New York Life mutual funds.
You would think.
You'd think, right? Same
Right,
thing that I'm
right.
doing. Well, here's the deal. New York Life sued by employees claiming excessive 401k fees. They're alleged for self-dealing. That means using their own products.
Right.
And fees charged by a company with an affiliated index, which plaintiffs claim enriched New York Life at the expense of employees' retirement savings. And it certainly did. What they ought to say is, and all of the other plans that we've sold are doing the same thing. Now, you may think that this is just a one-off and a new thing, but if you've listened to the show for long, we have talked about it with Transamerica. We've talked about it with Mass Mutual. We've talked about it with Waddell and Reed, MFS, Fidelity. Some of these suits are big. The largest settlement to date was $62 million. That was paid by Lockheed Martin. That wasn't an investment company, obviously, but it was somebody just not paying attention to what is going on. The Mainstay Fund, which is where they had the 401k for the New York Life, costs 35 basis points. That means that you're paying 0.35% to have your dollars inside of that plan. Whereas a similar mutual fund offered by Vanguard costs just 2 basis points. That means you've lost 33 basis points inside of the plan just in terms of fees and expenses. When you get out of the indexes and you get into actively managed fund, folks, this stuff becomes a much, much larger story. The one when I first broke this and talked about it on the show, it was earlier July. American Century Companies, the parent of American Century Investments, was sued for self-dealing and proprietary funds inside of their 401k.
So what do you do if you work for a company like that? And what do you do if your 401k that's being offered, you're paying excessive fees for if you use?
Well, again, you're under these rules. If you're functioning as your own fiduciary, right? If you're doing this on your own, there's a couple things that you can do and a couple things you're limited.
Okay.
Bringing a class action suit against your employer is a tough thing to do, especially in a small shop. Right?
Sure. Oh, yeah.
And it usually makes attorneys rich, not you.
Right.
In this case, what do you do if you're the head of New York Life? Right. I can't tell people to go sell something that I don't put on my own 401k, but I want them to sell something that's going to make the company a lot of money.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's why they have the fiduciary rule. It's why April of 2017, if you're an employer, if you've got a 401k plan, understand the fiduciary rules are going to change all of this. You're going to have somebody who is independent, who has the ability to look at this in your best interest, not in the best interest of the insurance company that they're selling a product for.
Right. Yeah.
It's not going to work. But let's say you're husband and wife, you're sitting at home and you're going, okay, what do we do?
Right.
What is your 401k checklist? Well, the first thing that you do is either ask for the 2 plan documents or 2 plan document summaries. So what your wife's options are, what your options are, or your husband's options, however it is, what the 2 plans allow for.
Right.
You're going to look for certain things. The first thing that you're going to look for is what is the match? What is that match up to? Because you're going to find plans that are like ours at the Financial Enhancement Group. I put in 3% for people, whether they put money in or not. So everybody has to participate.
Right.
Everybody participates. Everybody is involved. Right. Once you've been here for 6 months, I think it is, you're in.
You're in. Right.
And that's their money. Okay. Some places will give you 3%. If you put in 6. So they'll match 50 cents on the dollar up to 6%. Some people will do dollar for dollar matching up to 5%, right? So first thing you want to know is what that matching option is.
If there is one.
Now remember, folks, if you're in a 401k, the matching part, the part the employer puts in, has to go to the traditional side. All right. That means it's got to be tax deferred. No way around it yet, right? The second thing you want to know is, do they or do they not have a Roth option? Now, remember, a Roth is not a thing. It's a tax code, right? And all 401k plans can have a Roth option. They're not that expensive to add, right? People don't understand the implication, and so they don't get into the nitty-gritty of why they need to be there.
Would it be easier just to say, call it what you want, but I'm just electing to pay the taxes now instead of later? It seems to me that people get hung up on they think it's an actual thing.
Sure. Yes, but that's not the way it works.
Well, I know, but that is what it is, right?
We name everything. Yes,
there's nothing more to...
If you elect the Roth option, you're choosing to pay the taxes today so that you don't pay taxes on the growth later on.
And that's really all there is to it.
From a farm perspective, you want to pay taxes on the seed or you want to pay taxes on the crop. Right?
It's perfect analogy.
That's the way we explained it for years. So does it have a Roth option?
Right.
Then the third thing that I'm going to look at is what are the investment options within? And I'm going to do my best to comb down the lowest amount of fees and expenses that I can find in various funds. Like your spouses may not have very good many choices that are worthwhile at all, but may have some index funds that are very, very cheap. Right.
Okay.
I'm not a huge target dated fund, but that's because we manage money. Right. I think if people took apart the target dated funds, they would find out that they're better than just sitting on autopilot. But they're not better when you could have the access of a professional money manager that's helping you make decisions.
Right.
Now, with a target dated, what I find every now and then, because people try not to put all their eggs in one basket, is we had one guy that came in not too long ago that had 5 different target dated funds. No, that's if you're going to have a target dated fund, you want one, not 5 of them. They're not different mutual funds. They're they're designed to do over different time periods. So we've talked about target dated funds on the show before. But I want to look at the choices that are inside of both the 401ks. And I'm going to look at those choices from a standpoint of what are the investment options and what are the fees and expenses to get those options, right? That's how you go down that checklist to figure out where you really need to be. And then I'm going to put together the best plan. So hubby and wife, you're sitting here and we're talking and we're going to save, people tend to talk in percentages. So, what I'll see is we both agreed to save 6%, right? Well, okay, fine. What's it come up to a dollar figure? Because I want to put money to where it is best served.
Right.
Right. So, we have a really good 401k option here because that's what I do for a living. Is help people with their retirement decisions. So our CFA and our charter market technician, and we put it together to make sure that it's the best. So, but let's say that my wife worked somewhere that had a really good 401k, and what I had here, what her husband had at work wasn't so good. Right. Let's just say that. Well, I told you already, we get 3% whether we put it in or not. Right. So she didn't have to put any over here to get a match. Right. So all of the other money, if the other 401k is substantially better, all of the other money ought to be going into my wife's plan, not mine. Right.
Because it's going to earn more. Well,
less fees and expenses.
Right.
Maybe it has the Roth option.
Sure. Lots of things.
Whatever it is it needs for you. But that's really the checklist. And you've heard me talk about it before, but it's silo investing. And it's where people, if you're from the farm community, you know what a silo is. It keeps the beans away from the corn.
Yep.
Right. And people get caught thinking in these silos and making decisions independently of that silo without looking at everything that's going on. How does this whole story really play out? What can we do to get the biggest bang for the buck that we can? And when I talk about that bang, it either comes from reducing risk and volatility, reducing fees or expenses, improving our tax return either today or tomorrow, or making sure that we're getting a better chance at a real return. And again, real is something above zero plus inflation. You've got to be willing to have that conversation. Does it take a little more time? Yes. Every now and then I have some say, well, we keep our money separately. Well, you may keep your money separately, but I got news for you. Your tax return is collective. Right. Yeah. So we've really got to be thinking about this in a more a prudent manner. And the challenge again is if you don't look at your tax return, if you don't understand how it works, if you don't understand how the 401ks affect you now and into the future when you begin those required minimum distributions, many decisions that are made wouldn't be made if if there was an absolute understanding of everything that needed to occur, needed to take place and transpire. So we encourage you to look at it in a simplified fashion, get the checklist out, know what your plan offers, all right? Know what the fees and expenses are, know what the matching is, know whether or not it has a Roth option. Make sure that you look at the family money as the family money and say, okay, honey, yes, you're going to be saving more. It's going into your account. Don't worry about divorces and all of that other stuff. The judge separates it then. It's not a matter of you getting your plan and her getting hers. It's not that at all. Make sure that you're getting the best use of that capital that you can for your family going in the right direction. Right? Hey, you're listening to Consider This. I'm Joe Clark along with Sherry Contos. You got a question or comment, shoot me an email. I'm more than happy to answer your questions. And don't forget, you can always go to our website at yourlifeafterwork.com to find my newspaper column and more shows if you've got other things you want to catch up on. And while you're there, don't forget to get signed up for the Market Carver. That's the weekly video that I send out every Thursday afternoon to give you an update on what we think's going on in the market that is most important. We'll take a break and be right back.
Welcome to Consider This with Big Joe Clark. Joe is a certified financial planner with more than 28 years of experience in the financial services industry. He serves as the managing partner of the Financial Enhancement Group, LLC, and also taught financial planning at Purdue University for 7 years. The Financial Enhancement Group is an SEC-registered investment advisory firm based in Indiana with more than $200 million in assets, serving clients in more than 20 states. Indiana offices are located in Anderson, Fishers, Lafayette, and Rensselaer, as well as Sonoma County, California. This show is for educational purposes, and you're strongly encouraged to consult your advisor regarding your individual issues and opportunities. Joe can be reached at 800-928-4001. You can find more information about Joe and the Financial Enhancement Group at yourlifeafterwork.com. Enjoy the show, and remember to consider this.
Good morning and welcome back to Consider This. I'm Joe Clark.
I'm Sherry Contos.
Happy to have you along. All right, so we're going to do it. We're going to tread ever so gently, ever so lightly into that political quagmire of an election that we have coming. And it's fair for my clients to ask me questions, and Lord knows, church everywhere else, that what does the election mean to the economy and everything else? For me to tell you that we haven't talked about that in our allocation meeting or prepared for it or know which sectors would probably be helped and which would be hindered, depending on which party won, would be a mistake, because we do. It's our job. We have to.
Sure.
For me to tell you which one of the candidates is more important or should be elected or not it's not my job. If you listen to the show for long, you probably know I certainly have my own opinions, but I will tell you there are a few things that have to come out of the next presidential cycle that we have to be aware of. Right. The first one is there will be 3 or 4 Supreme Court justices appointed.
That's
and that won't necessarily change our economy, but it will certainly change the culture and the way our country operates, the way it views things. If you look to see the number of split decisions that come out of the Supreme Court, where it's 5-4, they're just very, very, very close decisions. The next president matters a lot there. The big one is going to be Social Security. And
really?
There's changes that just have to take place inside of that space and inside of that environment. And it is a political quagmire. Anybody who gets it through is dealing with jeopardizing any of their political future. And I can tell you, it was about 8 or 9 years ago when we look at the federal budget, and you talk about it, we use this word called entitlements. Right now, entitlements to me is not a dirty word, but some people who receive entitlements consider it a dirty word. You can't call it the welfare department; it's the Division of Family and Children. Right?
Sure, yes.
We want to be politically correct about everything that's going on, and okay, maybe that's the way that it ought to be. I don't understand, but we want to be very accurate about it. So. Social Security, I referred to as an entitlement, and one of my clients, still a dear friend and long-term client, almost bit my head off. He said, "Joe, I paid into that every year for 40 years.
Yeah, right.
It's not an entitlement; it's coming to me, right?" And that is the mindset of many people who collect Social Security.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So to touch this is really a political hot potato. There are key things that you need to know about Social Security that could change. And we did make changes December 17th of last year in the budget bill, as you recall. The file and suspend strategy that was there was taken away. A few other things that most people didn't understand and only affected the higher, I wouldn't say the higher income, but only affected people in modest interest, right? It meant a lot of difference to the clients and the people that we take care of, mind you, and in my own household even. But it still is part of still part of the deal. What other changes could occur? And the one that I think we probably understand the least is the cost of living allowance, or the COLA. Cost of living allowance did not exist when the plan first came out. It was added back in the mid-'70s, 73, 74, I believe it was. Inflation started to get higher. We seem to have plenty of money, I guess. I don't know when Congress met,
right.
And they decided to add a COLA, a cost of living allowance. So when you take Social Security, when you go to socialsecurity.gov, which everybody should do to get their sheet printed off, when you do that, it's going to show you what you would get at full retirement age. I'm 49. For me, that's 67 years old. It's also going to show me if I took it early at 62, what I would be able to get. Now, remember, you lose 8% per year every year you take it early. But it's not just the 8%. It's also the cost of living allowance, right?
Yeah.
So it's that growth on that growth, for the entire
For the year,
period of your life expectancy that you're dealing with.
So what do you think might happen? They'll raise that, they'll lower that, they'll change that?
Well, that's some of the changes that have to occur. If they're very liable, they're very likely to reduce the cost of living allowance. Or to standardize. We're going to talk about Bernie Sanders here in a minute, because this is one of the points that he brought up to the world.
Okay.
They will probably make it so that the taxable so that it's not limited to 85% subject to taxation. They'll probably make it more taxable, especially as your income is higher. Would be one of my guesses, if you will. But the cost of living in numbers that are there, the inflation part, is a serious issue. So Bernie Sanders, when he was running for president, and good Lord only knows where he's at now, brought up the CPE. Now, when we talk about the CPI, it's a Consumer Price Index. You typically hear us in the economic world use X food and energy, right? Or we'll talk about core, right? But the CPI is the number that the government uses to change your Social Security payment every year. So last year they said there was the CPI was flat, so you didn't get a raise. That's only happened twice since the mid-'70s when they added this in.
Wow, that's interesting.
When you look at inflation, and this is one of the key things that I talk to the families that we serve about, it's really understanding how inflation truly works. So when we talk about inflation, most of it is the CPI-U, and that represents about 88% of the people in the spending world, if you will. The other 29% is made up of a smaller subset that we call the CPI-W, and so we get the urban people, and then we get the people who aren't in the big cities. There is another index that's out there, and it's the CPI/E. And that stands for elderly. And it's people that are 62 years old or older inside of the household. And not surprisingly, the CPI-E, it runs at a higher rate than the CPI that we use for everything else. It is the inflation rate that elderly people experience is greater than what most people experience. Now, Bernie Sanders made the argument that was because of health care.
Yeah.
And he was sort of right.
Right.
I mean, older people tend to use more health care than younger. He was sort of right.
Makes sense.
But it's not just that in its own right. And it's really one of the things that concerns me about this ongoing economy and about things that people really not understanding their money or just taking academia at broad-based value and saying, yeah, that makes sense, or when somebody comes in to get ready to retire, we're going to sit down with you, Sherry, and we're going to say, all right, you need to give us a budget. And I don't hold any bones back about this. I don't have a budget right now, but I will when I go to retire. The budget is going to be split into two areas. Fixed expenses, those are things you have to have, like utilities, food, right, cable,
Yep.
and things that you want to do, like go visit the Grand Canyon or Mount Rainier or what we call the social life. I'm going to split it into those two areas. For extra credit, I'm going to then divide those areas, and it's primarily all on the fixed one is where it matters. How much of it is service-based and how much of it is goods? You remember, think goods and services when you think our economy. What we have found is that goods are actually deflating. We can buy microwaves cheaper today than we could 5 years ago. TVs cheaper, couches cheaper. Things that are made, we can buy cheaper. Services that are provided, on the other hand, we're paying more and more money for. And as our population changes from the demographics that we have to deal with, the fact that we have 10,000 people every day for the next 18 years turning 65 years old, right? As we look at that and go through this continuum of time of changing thing, services are simply going to become more and more expensive because we have less and less people to be able to do the job.
Right.
And there's, when demand goes up and supply remains consistent or contracts, in this case, the workforce, you've got to expect those wages to go up, wageflation, and very easily add to the inflation factor. So as I look at Social Security going forward, I think there's a couple things that we've got to deal with. We either have to deal with the fact that the CPI number is inaccurate for the people that are receiving the payment, and just go away from that game altogether and say it's either going to be a flat 2% increase or it's going to be no increase. We either have to do that, or we have to increase the age. Right? If I was in Congress, I would be advocating for somebody that's under 50, me, right, to be waiting to 69 instead of 67.
Yeah.
Right? You'd be amazed what those extra 2 years would add for everybody else. But it's a political hot potato.
Sure.
They actually had one guy in office who's not running again, try to put the first bill through Congress, and it's going to go nowhere, especially in a political climate that we live in today.
Sure.
So,
wow.
Social Security is one of those things. The 4 judges is the other.
Yeah.
Those are the big ones that we know economically will be impacted, have to be impacted, need to be discussed, and you can't think of it as an entitlement. You can't be rude and call it an entitlement. You just got to deal with the facts. We have to spend more money than what we have right now. We need a new strategy.
Yeah.
Hey, you're listening to Consider This with Joe Clark, Sherry Contos. I got to take a break. We'll be right back.
Welcome to Consider This with Big Joe Clark. Joe is a certified financial planner with more than 28 years of experience in the financial services industry. He serves as the managing partner of the Financial Enhancement Group, LLC, and also taught financial planning at Purdue University for 7 years. The Financial Enhancement Group is an SEC-registered investment advisory firm based in Indiana with more than $200 million in assets, serving clients in more than 20 states. Indiana offices are located in Anderson, Fishers, Lafayette, and Rensselaer, as well as Sonoma County, California. This show is for educational purposes, and you're strongly encouraged to consult your advisor regarding your individual issues and opportunities. Joe can be reached at 800-928-4001. You can find more information about Joe and the Financial Enhancement Group at yourlifeafterwork.com. Enjoy the show, and remember to consider this.
Good morning and welcome back to Consider This. I'm Joe Clark.
I'm Sherry Contos.
Happy to have you along. It is very hard for me to believe that we're already in August.
I know.
Kids are in school. It is a shocking thing. Vacations are coming to an end. Fortunately, we still have Labor Day coming, but I remember the good old days when school started after Labor Day. But that is another story. Here's the point. What should you be thinking about in August when it comes to your financial planning, your tax planning? And the answer is it's hot outside. Markets also tend to get hot. And hot, I mean, more volatility tends to pick up. This is the time where you really want to sit down and make sure that you're comfortable with the risk profile that you have, the risk and volatility, that you're on the right game plan. We like to talk about going on a trip inside of our office where you go through the accumulation phase, the preservation phase, and eventually the distribution phase. Think about a plane loading, getting to 30,000 feet, and then hopefully landing safely. You have to be thinking about that. And it's one of those things when we get into the late fall, Christmas and Thanksgiving, it's conversations that go by the wayside. So this is a perfect good time to sit in the air conditioner, sit down with your honey, and ask him or her a question, and just make sure that you guys have got your 401k checklist in the right order, that you're doing the things that you need to do, and perhaps it's time to have a cup of coffee to sit down with somebody like us who has the ability to help. We're here for you. More than happy to have that conversation if we can be of service. But please find somebody just to run the ideas through to say, does this make sense? What am I missing? Make sure that they have a process. Make sure that they have a checklist, and make sure that you're doing your best to follow it. Folks, we sure appreciate all the comments, the questions. Keep them coming. You can email me, considerthis@yourlifeafterwork.com. With that, my friends, have a wonderful week. God bless. We'll see you again next time.
Thanks for listening to Consider This with Big Joe Clark. Joe can be reached at 800-928-4001 or via email at bigjoe@yourlifeafterwork.com. The Financial Enhancement Group, LLC, is based at 429 East 14th Street, Anderson, Indiana, 46016. Be sure to check out their website for more information at yourlifeafterwork.com.